Theater Tuesdays, and this is the show where we like to talk about everything on the stage. It's so much fun. Each week, bring on talented people to talk with me about all things show tunes, Broadway, theater, and it's super fun. And I'm theater critic Rachel Wagner. And today I have with me my friend Camille Chandler is here, and she is the sound engineer. Is that the correct word?
Yes. Yeah. Audio
Sound-
engineer, sound engineer, same thing.
Yes, she is the sound engineer she's worked much at Centerpoint Legacy and is currently working at the Pickleville Playhouse in Garden City. And so it's so exciting to have you on. This is our first sort of craft person, tech person that we've had on the podcast. And so it's great to have you on. And thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, I am so excited to be here. It's kind of fun to let your people know the technical side,
Yeah.
at least
Yeah.
one of the aspects of the
Yeah.
technical side. There's many, but sound is a big one.
Huge. I've said for a long time that I think if anyone was going to ask me for advice of what a small regional company should focus their resources on, I would say sound. Having good
Yes,
mics, if you can hear what the people are saying, and I know it's expensive, I totally do, but it makes a world of difference.
it really does. Because when you are a sound person, we
Mhm.
always say if the audience doesn't notice you,
Right.
then you're doing your job right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if a mic problems, the audience is always going to remember that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's true. And like if you can't hear, if there's audio, then you can't appreciate everything else.
Correct.
You know,
Yes. So,
everything hinges on being able to understand what the people are saying. It's so
yes.
crucial. And so it's kind of fun because you and I are friends just in
Yes.
real life. um, and we actually met. So before I became a film critic and on Rotten Tomatoes, before I became a member of Utah Film Critics Association and all that, I used to have to play the game of going to films to film screenings and trying to win tickets. And I hustled for years. Every single screening that was done here, I would log on in the morning and I would enter a raffle. And if you got the raffle, I would have to drive in to City, usually it was City Weekly, get the ticket. And then once I had the ticket, I had to show up early and like hour, 2 hours early in order to hopefully get in because they gave out more tickets than they had spots. And I got into every single thing I tried to get into, except for the second Michael Bay Ninja Turtles movie. That was the only one that I
Oh my goodness,
missed.
that's actually really good.
Yeah, I know. It was pretty good. I was really close on Wonder Woman, and I don't know if you were there. You were waiting in line at Wonder Woman. I feel like I remember that, but maybe I'm getting my. But I remember just hoping and hoping and hoping that I would get in, and the line, it was getting closer and closer, and I'm like, oh no. And then they were like, okay, that's it. And I think there were like, I was like next up. I was so close. And
Oh,
this lady came out and was like, I can take one more. How about you? And she went, and I was like, I'm so
yes.
you're my hero. But I really, really hustled in those days. And so when I got put on the press list, which was hard to do here, they're very, very, very picky. That was an exciting moment for me. But
See, and we met in
yes,
one of those lines.
yes, we met in one of those lines for a movie that I think that for us meeting is probably the most significant thing that came out of
Yes.
that movie.
The movie was horrible, but I got a good friend out of it.
Like not just for us in Utah. I'm talking collectively. I think what us meeting
Yes.
was the most powerful thing to come out of the movie.
The
It's called,
entire movie.
yes, it was called the A Space Between Us. It was called,
Yeah.
and It's an absolutely terrible film. I
Was
don't think
not good. And I had won tickets, but they had
okay.
told me you had to get there early because just because I won tickets didn't mean I would get a
Mhm.
seat.
Yeah.
So that's why I was there early to get in line. And then we were in line together and, just
Mhm.
started talking. But that's how that happened.
Yeah, you were there with your ex-husband and we
Yes.
just started chatting and we got along really well. And yeah, I mean the movie is just it's just nothing. And I have to say, I think that Gary Oldman, I don't know how he has an Oscar because he has been in more horrible movies than he's been in
Yeah.
so many stinkers. He was in that Red Riding Hood movie. He was in
Oh, yeah.
yeah. He has quite the filmography, but he was in the one I think for a certain generation of nerds, if you were in Nolan's Batman movies, that's it. You get a free pass for life. It doesn't even matter what role you had.
That would be nice.
And I think that he is one of those people.
Oh
But
my goodness.
he can be a very good actor, but he is terrible in this movie, The Space Between Us. And
Yeah.
and poor Britt Robertson. I always feel bad for her because I feel like so many of her projects, like on paper, must have sounded like, wow, that sounds like great. And then it turns out like this on paper probably sounded pretty cool, you know?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And, and like she was in Tomorrowland, which ended up being, a big bomb. And on paper, that probably sounded amazing. And
Yes.
she
Yeah.
just had really bad luck, I think. Uh poor thing. But yeah, we met there and we just hit it off. And it is interesting how that happens in life. There's just certain people who you just click with.
And we did. Yeah, totally
Yeah.
instantly. And we've been friends ever since. So it's been
Yeah.
really fun.
Yeah. And that was 2018. And I
Yes.
don't even think the movie ended up even getting released in the theaters, like maybe for a
No, I
week,
don't
like
think it,
nothing, if it
yeah, I
did.
don't think it did either. We're like, oh, we saw a movie that never got
Yeah.
released. Like
Yeah.
it was, yeah.
Are you a fan of Rachel's Reviews? Do you look forward to Family Movie Night, Female Film Critics panels, or the Talking Disney podcast? If so, please consider supporting the podcast by becoming a Patreon. As a patron, you get to access monthly events such as the watch-alongs and Q&As, where you get to talk to stars and find out the behind the scenes of the movie making industry. And you can pick what I review for Family Movie Night or even become a guest on the podcast. Podcasts and YouTube channels are expensive, and I really, really could use your help. I would so appreciate it. You also get to be a member of the Facebook group where we talk about all the films that we're seeing, and we have so much fun. Go to patreon.com/hallmarkies and select one of the Rachel's fan tiers. That's patreon.com/hallmarkies.
I don't even know. I think that William was in Camelot and you invited me to
Yes,
come out and see
exactly. Because
him.
you knew both of us.
Yeah.
And so I had said, hey, I'm running sound and William's in this show. Do you want to come see it? And you
Yeah.
said, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, because I had never been to Centerpoint because it's a little bit of a drive
Uh-huh.
for me. And so yeah, I went and I loved it. I mean,
Yeah.
they are doing really special things there. And I think they have managed to keep the price very reasonable for the quality, which
Yes.
I appreciate. I mean, I mean, it's way cheaper than Hale or
It
Pioneer Theater Company or some of on that same sort of level. It's a lot more reasonable.
it really is. And you are getting amazing talent at
Yeah,
Centerpoint. It is
yeah,
insane the people who are on that stage. It's
hmm
amazing.
yeah. It's true. So, what do you think as far as theater versus movies? Since we met at a movie screening,
Mhm.
um, what do you think both offer, and do you have a preference? I guess.
So I think I prefer live theater
Hmm.
because you go, expecting to see a fun show, but you really don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah,
Like
that's true.
every show is different, and you go to a movie and it's going to be the same thing. Like
Mhm.
it's very, I feel like movies are maybe more predictable. I think they try to put more twists and turns in shows, like live shows. But I do prefer going to live theater, which is kind of funny because my boyfriend Josh loves movies. And I just never grew up watching a ton. I like movies
Mhm.
too, but I
Mhm.
did more musicals and plays.
Yeah.
So he'll talk about movies and then I talk about musicals and plays. So we've been introducing each other more to like our favorites of
Yeah.
those.
Yeah, I was talking to a fellow theater critic and they brought up a really interesting point because I was talking about how everybody in movie world is so spoiler conscious, you know, and I
Uh-huh.
and I that was something I definitely noticed in becoming a theater critic, that people wanted more details than
Yes.
people want with movie reviews. People don't want to know almost anything about the plot and in a movie review. And so that was something I just kind of think about. And they made a good point. They said that when you're writing a theater review, you're capturing an experience that nobody else will ever have. And even people that go see that show won't have exactly the same, experience that you've had. Whereas the movie,
Yes.
99% of people can, sit down and have the exact same experience that you've had.
Yes, because
And
it's the same thing every
yeah,
time. But yeah, live theater, like you said, you're capturing your experience in that show.
yeah. Which I thought was really interesting. And I think that is, I mean, I love movies. I'm a
Yes.
huge movie fan, but there is something special. And I think if I had to pick, I would pick live theater, but thankfully I
Hmm.
don't. I can just enjoy all of it.
And it's awesome because Utah
Oh
is
my gosh.
amazing with live theater. We have
Unbelievable.
so many things here to do.
Yeah.
So
I could literally go to something every single day, go to a
you
show
could. Yeah.
every day.
No, you really could. There is
Yeah.
something always going on, and it's funny because I have so many, like I have a huge theater family now, and
Yeah.
I consider them my friends, and so it's fun to go to different places and support them in their shows and go see them, and
Hmm.
so I enjoy
Hmm.
doing that
Yeah. Do you find yourself critiquing the sound when you're seeing someone else's shows?
every single time.
Yeah.
Even like Broadway shows, the
Sure.
Eccles,
Yeah.
it's that has ruined me running sound.
Yeah.
I critique sound every show I go to. I cannot shut
Mhm.
my sound brain off.
Yeah. 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 That's funny. Well, how did you get started in loving theater, but then also learning this craft of sound?
So I started theater in high school. I actually played volleyball and in middle school and in
Uh-huh.
ninth grade. And then when I tried out for the volleyball team in 10th grade, I did not make it. And I was devastated. I couldn't believe I did not make the volleyball team in 10th grade because I'd already played. So
Mhm.
then I thought, okay, what can I do that's not sports? Well, theater. So then I got into theater and was huge in theater all through high school, did every single show, was on the drama club council when I was
Mhm.
a
Mhm.
senior. And then through college, I kind of had to take a break from it because I was in nursing school. I'm a registered nurse.
Mhm.
So I had to take a break. And then I came up to Salt Lake because I got a job up here as a nurse. And I worked night shift for 8 years.
Oh
So
my
theater was just
gosh.
on the back burner. And I just thought, you know what? Like, I really want to get back into theater somehow, but that's probably never going to happen, But that was like my love. So
Mhm.
then my ex-husband was in a show and we had all gone out to dinner because as a cast, a lot of times after shows, you'll go out to dinner and just kind of have fun with each other. And I had just started a day shift nursing job. And, I thought about theater, but didn't think about how I could get back into it. Well, we went to this dinner, and the technical director at Centerpoint was asking about people that if they knew anyone who ran sound. And he asked me, "Hey, have you run sound?" And I said, "Well, I'm a nurse." And at the time, I was working at a Hallmark store because I always worked two jobs. And he
Oh my
goes, well,
gosh.
have you ever done anything with sound? And I said, well, as a joke, I said, in high school, I turned on a microphone for the assembly. And he goes, do you want a job? Because I was a nurse. He knew that I could handle pressure. He knew that I could
Uh-huh.
handle stress. And he offered me a job.
Wow.
And so then I just went in and started shadowing. I shadowed the show Tale of Two Cities and kind of started learning sound by one of the other sound technicians. And then the technical director he taught me hands-on. And then that's how I got into it. And my first show was A Christmas Carol at Centerpoint in
Mm.
2017. We had 43 microphones, and I thought I was going to die. I went home crying every single night. It was so hard to run 43 mics because you're turning them on and off. You're doing everything, and you're doing the music as well and things. And I just thought, this is not for me. And my boss, the technical director, he is just such an amazing person. His name's Derek. And he just said, if you can handle this show, you can handle any show. So then I just stuck it out, and then it just got better from there. So then I just fell in love with it and everything about sound, because it's just you're making the audience feel things by what you're doing. And I love that aspect of it.
Yeah.
So I've been doing it for 6 years, and
That's
I've done
great.
I've done sound for 35 shows. So
Wow.
it's a lot.
Yeah. And how did they find you how did Pickleville find you?
So here's the thing about technical theater. Like any advice for people that want to get into technical theater, a lot of it pertains to networking.
Sure.
It's who you know. So
That's so much of the arts in general.
Yes. And even like acting, a lot of it is networking and getting to know people and getting your foot in the door. And so Pickleville had heard about me from one of my friends who had done shows there. And they were talking about, like, do you know any sound people? And they're like, oh yeah, I know, like, this Camille girl, she does it at Centerpoint, blah, blah, blah. So they reached out to me, and I couldn't do it the year that they wanted me to come in 2021, and I wasn't available. So in 2022, they reached back out and said, hey, please come do some shows. And so I was able to. So I started at Pickleville summer of 2022. And then I was able to do sound design for them this year and ran both of their summer shows. And I'm currently running their fall show and did the sound design for that.
Yeah, that's great. I remember talking with actually a sound engineer that I interviewed for movies. Mitch Poston is her name. And I asked her why, or how did she feel about the fact that there weren't very many female sound designers in the business. And she said that she used to think there was something kind of nefarious about it, that there was something kind of, but she realized that for a lot of it, at least, that it's just people hire the people they know. People hire the people they're comfortable with. And so it's about kind of getting people to take that like second step and be like, okay, I need to go out of my comfort zone and not just work with my friends.
And
that's true.
It really, if you think about technical theater, it is a male dominant field because you do need strong people on crew. You do need, people that can lift things and whatnot, but it is really cool to be a female, audio engineer and sound designer because there aren't a lot. And so I hope that more keep coming up the ranks, because I feel like they are.
How do you balance everything with a whole other job that you're doing? I mean, I guess you said you've always had 2 jobs, but still, that amazes me, because nursing is an extremely stressful job.
Yeah. And that's what's kind of funny about all of this, because I always say, okay, nursing is a stressful job, but like I've been a registered nurse now for 15 years. And then I do, I always say that sound is my hobby job. But I mean, I love being a nurse. I have always wanted to be a nurse ever since I was 9 years old. I knew I was going to be a nurse, but I feel like I can take, like, Nurse Camille has to be more professional and serious and taking care of people, but Sound Camille can be kind of more playful while still being, professional and stuff, but I can kind of put my personality more into it. And it's a stressful job, but it's a fun stress, is what I say.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't sleep a lot.
Yeah.
So.
You and me both. We're the same that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm not one to talk because I am literally always working every moment of my life.
Yep. That's how it works.
If I'm not working, I usually will find a way to make it work.
Exactly.
Like I started just going to, live theater for fun, but of course I find a way to make it part of my job.
Exactly. See, exactly. You're like, I'm going to do this and I'm now going to add a job onto it. Yeah. So
yeah,
exactly.
So one thing I wondered about with doing sound, is it hard seeing the same show over and over and over again?
Actually, it's not at all.
Yeah.
Because every single show is different. Like, I don't think I've ever had a show that's gone the same as the previous night,
That's interesting.
And so something's always going on. And plus, the first week of the show, you're so stressed out because you're trying to make sure you're doing it the correct way and getting everything mixed correctly and everything. But then it kind of becomes muscle memory. And so who's coming on stage, what's coming up next. But I can literally say I have never gotten bored running a show over and over and over and over again, just because there's something fresh in it. The audiences react different. So that's always fun because you're always going to get a different audience reaction to things. Some audiences will clap and scream at certain parts and some audiences don't at that same part. So it's always different. And so that's why I think it's never gotten boring running the same show over and over. Are there shows that I didn't like to run? Yes. But it's just the show. So.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to ask. If there's ones that you're just like,
oh my gosh. Yeah. The Pirates of Penzance. That show, it's a hard show to run, but it just wasn't an enjoyable one. But there have been plenty that have been enjoyable, way more than I haven't liked. So
yeah, that one's not my favorite either. I mean, I think it's interesting because it was one of the first, but if it wasn't one of the first, I wouldn't, care. I could care less about it. I mean, Modern Major General is fun, but that's about all.
That one, yeah. Because they had the ASL interpreters come.
Okay.
And I had a blast watching them sign that song. I was like, this is the best ever. So yeah, that was a fun show.
That's fast. Yeah, because that's very fast.
Yes. But there's been 3 shows that I've ran twice, like at 2 different times.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, and even a couple of those shows are my favorites to run, which is kind of fun. So, So, I still am not sick of running any show.
Today's episode of the podcast is sponsored by W Rated, the podcast where we willingly watch the world's worst rated movies. Join me, Daisy,
and me, Claire, as we break down the IMDb Bottom 100, choosing a different film from the list every episode.
We take a deep dive into the plot, production, release, and reviews, usually with a special guest, to uncover if these films are truly as bad as everyone says they are.
You can find us on Spotify, Apple, Good Pods, and anywhere else you find your podcasts.
Yeah. So I know some people say they kind of groan that they feel like Broadway has become an amusement park. They say, that every show is based on a movie. Everything is, got your Disneys, your Shreks, your SpongeBob, your kind of a thing. How do you feel about that? Do you think Broadway is sold out?
I do feel like Broadway is having to try to give the crowds what they want.
Mhm.
And so I feel like it's hard to put out a new show, which
Mhm.
I love new shows. I love
Yeah.
going to new things that I've never heard of, but most people in general don't. So they're going to take these shows
Yeah.
and make musicals out of them because people already love them. And, you know, if you think about it in today's economy, it's all about making money. It's about business.
Yeah.
So I feel like that Broadway is having to do those popular shows
Mhm.
just because that's what the crowds want. Even
Mhm.
though I feel like I'm different and I do like those new shows that I've never heard of. I love going to those because I
Mhm.
don't know what to expect, you know,
Yeah.
but I am going to New York in December and I'm going to Sweeney Todd and Back to the Future.
Mhm.
And I'm actually really excited to see
Yeah.
Back to the Future because they said it's a really cool technical show.
Mhm.
So I
Mhm.
love watching that
Mhm.
kind of stuff, you know, and Sweeney Todd, it's a classic.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, I'm actually going myself. I mean, it'll be well after this. I'll be home by the time this airs, but yeah, I'm gonna see Back to the Future because I've heard it's super fun, and so
yes.
I'm game.
Awesome. Yeah, I know
Yeah.
you'll have to tell me how it is because I'm
Yeah.
really excited to see
Yeah.
it. So
And I'm not seeing Sweeney Todd, but because I'm seeing that literally twice here. I've seen it at the,
oh,
yeah, I'm
okay.
seeing, so I'm like, I don't need to see that in New York, but I am seeing Merrily We Roll Along, which is another
Uh-huh.
Sondheim that is almost
Yes.
never done. And I'm really excited to see it. And they're going to have Daniel Radcliffe in it.
Yes.
Yeah. So
That's
that'll be,
been, I mean, they have some really good actors in that one right
Mhm.
now. So
So I'm excited to see that. And a couple other shows that I'm going to see. I'm seeing this. I think it's called The Shark is Broken, about the making of Jaws, which I
oh,
love
fun.
Jaws. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm excited about that. It's just
Well, that would be
straight
a good
play.
mix between movie and play. So
Yeah, yeah. Do you have a show that you think is a little overrated that people just love and I don't love?
Phantom of the Opera. I
Mhm,
know that's gonna
mhm.
be so bad, but I guess I like it, but just I feel like the hype about it's just way too much.
Mhm,
But that's just my opinion.
mhm.
But you know, now that it's closed on Broadway, I feel like a lot of regional theaters are gonna start doing it, and then it's just
Yeah.
gonna be overplayed.
We've already got it on Kensington Theater.
Okay.
They were already doing it next year. They're doing
Yep.
Phantom of the Opera and Cats next year. I'm
Oh
like,
my
that
goodness.
is brave.
Wow.
Brave,
Yeah.
But I bet it won't be too long before Centerpoint is doing Phantom of the Opera. I could see
I
that
think,
in their
yeah,
future.
so can I. So that's why I'm like, I just feel like it's gonna start being overplayed.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
there are several shows that are overplayed, but
Mhm,
audiences like them, so theaters
mhm.
do them. So you know,
Yep. For me, that's Into the Woods and Mary Poppins. Those are the two that are played all the time that I don't love.
I
Yeah.
mean, Into the Woods is a great show. I love Into the Woods. I was actually in Into the Woods. I played
Oh,
the
really?
grandma. It was
Okay.
awesome.
That's a
Yeah,
good part.
but
Yeah.
but yeah, audiences love it, and so
Yeah,
Utah
they
theaters
do.
are just gonna keep doing it.
Especially in Utah, people, and they sell
Yep.
tickets. They sell
Yep.
tickets.
Exactly.
Do you have one that you think was that you've or been involved in or whatever, or just one in general that you think is underrated, underappreciated?
Maybe Crazy for You.
Okay.
I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
That show is so fun, and
Yeah.
it's very, you know, it's a lot of dance, but it is an adorable story, and it has great
Mm-hmm.
songs in it, great dancing, and I don't feel like a lot of people do that one.
Mm-hmm. One question I like to ask is if there's so many, almost every musical these days is from a movie, based on a
Uh-huh.
movie. So if they asked you to come up with a movie that has not been made into a musical, what would you pick? What do you think has like the bones to be a Broadway musical?
Oh my
I know it's
goodness.
tricky.
Okay.
I'll tell you
See,
a
and
couple
we're
of mine while you're thinking if
okay.
you want.
Yeah.
So for me, I think that The Princess Bride, and I know that they've tried, I think twice. I think there's been a couple different treatments, but it's never come to fruition. But I just feel like it has all of the spots that you could put songs in. and all of the sort of the characters that feel theatrical, feel like they would belong on stage. And
Yes.
it just seems perfect for a musical.
That actually it would be a really good one. And it would be a classic one that everybody knows, Princess
Yeah.
Bride. And everyone knows
Everyone
the
would
lines
go.
from it. That would actually be a really popular one.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think, like one of maybe a Disney, like another
Mhm.
Disney one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm trying to think of a show. Oh my goodness, my brain is blanking right now.
Yeah.
What are some
What would be a Disney one
like
that you
what's a
could
good
do?
Disney one
Pirates of the
that
Caribbean.
done.
Mm-hmm.
Done.
Mm-hmm.
That would be so
Yeah.
much fun to sound design that one
Mhm.
because of all the different sound effects.
Mm-hmm.
And you could actually do water and your ships and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Done.
Yeah.
Okay.
I also think that that Thor Ragnarok. I know they've done Rogers the Musical at in California Adventure, but I
Okay.
just think that like Taika Waititi's kind of over the top kind of charm that he brings to, and especially to that movie, and how funny it is. It's just like they even starts with a play in Thor Ragnarok. They literally have
Okay.
Damon is an actor, and so I think that Thor Ragnarok could be a fun musical.
I was excited that they did Rogers the
Me too.
musical,
I wish I could have
based on
seen
Captain
it.
America. I wish I could have seen it. So, but I
It
did
wasn't-
download the
Yeah.
audio and it's really good.
Yeah. Well, and it was nice. They actually allowed people to post like the full performance on, which surprised me, on YouTube. And so I did watch it at least. So that was fun. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just because it was at Disneyland, they let people do that.
I know, because they didn't have it very long. But yeah, I think it could be a lot of fun.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, hardy, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies.
Yeah. Well, we thought it would be fun to talk about or give our list of the top 5 shows that you have done sound for.
Yes.
And so I think all 5 of mine, I think you did sound for all 5. Pretty sure.
Nice. And it's going to be funny because my list and your list are going to be completely different, I think. Because I'm running them from like how fun it was to run sound for them is what I did my rankings on.
Yeah. Yeah. And these are just which ones are just really kind of my favorite shows.
Awesome.
Well, why don't you go first? What's your number 5?
Okay, so number 5, I would have to put the outdoor concerts during COVID. I know that is so random, but it was so fun to run sound for those because we had it through a radio broadcast. So we set it up in the Centerpoint parking lot and people would come and from there and park in their cars and listen to it through the radio.
I love that.
Because we're like, we have to do something for during COVID. We can't shut this down completely. People need entertainment.
Sure.
So we did that. And I loved running those shows because people would honk their horns when they would clap. And it was fun to help with the radio broadcasting for that one too.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I wish I had gone to one of those because that sounds really neat.
Yeah. Because they were different every
time.
week.
It was a hard time, but.
Yeah, exactly. So they did different people every week. It was a different theme. So that was a lot of fun to do.
That is cool. Well, my number 5 is A Christmas Story. It was really fun, not only I think the show is genuinely fun. It has catchy
Uh-huh.
songs. It was fun because you were kind enough to take me up to the stage, and I got to walk around
Yeah.
and see all the sets, and that was very enjoyable. And obviously I'm a big Christmas person, and so
Uh-huh.
any these Christmas shows are just really fun for me. And I thought you did a great job there of capturing the aesthetic and
Mhm.
capturing the feel of this house and the department store, and just all the different set pieces
That
were
was a
all
great show.
very lush and very and all the talent. The kid was great.
Yes.
So it was a very, I've seen Christmas Story. I saw it at Pioneer Theater Company. I've seen it at Sierra. I've seen it at Centerpoint. Seen it a bunch of times now at this point. And I just really enjoyed this version at Centerpoint.
Oh, awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was a lot of fun. I love that show.
Yeah. So what do you have F for?
Okay, so number 4, I'm gonna have to say The Little Mermaid, which is funny because I know you don't like the musical of Little Mermaid, but I have ran it at Centerpoint, and I've been able to run it at Pickleville Playhouse. So I got 2 different versions of running it, and I just loved both of them so much, and it's just so fun to run that show.
Yeah. I did appreciate, every time I've seen it, I have appreciated aspects of it, most of the stuff from the original film, and I like the when they get the characters on the scooters and the wheelies and stuff. That was creative.
Yeah
And they can do a lot with costumes and all that stuff. I just think like the adaptation, the book is a little weird, like making Flounder in love with Ariel, like just bizarre. That was such a strange choice. And then making Ursula Triton's sister, and I'm just like, because they can't just have a villain. Disney just can't do it nowadays. They have to have some like complicated backstory about why they were wronged or whatever, and it just like rolled my eyes. And I think that most of the new songs are like but
and they're fun to run. Like She's in Love is such a fun song to run with Flounder and all the sisters. So I like running that song. Yeah.
Well, and Daddy's Little Angel, I can see that would be fun.
It's a fun one. Yep, exactly.
I can see that. That's okay. You're allowed to have it on your list.
So what's your number 4?
My number 4 is actually another Alan Menken show. It's Sister Act.
Yes.
This was really fun at Centerpoint, and partly it was because I took my niece, who I don't get to see that often because she's in Virginia. She was in town, and a lot of times they will kind of like, oh, I don't want to, do something with, who wants to hang out with their, nerdy aunt. But she agreed, and she had a great experience. She loved it. And so that was just made for a special moment, a special experience, which is one of the great things about theater and live theater, is you can have those experiences with your loved ones. And oftentimes I am going to theater by myself, so that makes it extra special. And it was a very, very fun production. The costumes, it is kind of it is sort of a shocking musical in a way, because it's a lot more violent than you expect.
It is. Yeah.
I mean, the bad guy, he shoots person point blank in the face.
Yeah.
Things like that. So that's it makes it kind of an interesting show. But they had a lot of energy in that production, and they always excel at the dance at Centerpoint. Absolutely excel.
And that cast that just was amazing because I usually run the Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and it was awesome. And they're all so lovely. Like all the nuns are just lovely people in real life.
Yeah. So that was my number 4. What about you? What's your number 3?
So I think my number 3, I'm going to have to say Scarlet Pimpernel.
Okay.
And I picked this one because there are a few songs in that show that are very difficult to run, but when you run them perfectly, you get chills and goosebumps, and you know that you mixed that song perfectly. So
Mhm.
mixing a song is taking the microphones and like putting one higher, putting one lower, mixing them to sound good. The sound person's always doing that.
Yeah.
We don't just turn on a mic, shut off a mic. You're
Mhm.
mixing the show is what we call it.
Right.
And so there are 3 songs in that show that I just love to run. And if I could cause myself to get chills or goosebumps, I knew I did it right.
Yeah. Yeah. That one, yeah, I mean, because almost every song is an ensemble song
Mm-hmm.
in that
Yeah,
show.
there is a lot. Because the first
A
one,
lot.
Madame Guillotine,
Mhm.
is such a powerful start to the show.
Mhm.
And then Into the Fire, when,
Mhm.
you know, the good guys are coming for you. And then The Riddle is
Mhm.
another one that I loved mixing those songs so
Mhm.
much.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good one. Well, for me, number 3, and I wasn't sure if I think you did sound on this, but I wasn't sure, is She Loves Me.
Yes, I did. Yep.
Okay. Okay. And
Such a fun show.
I absolutely love this show. I think it's super underappreciated, underrated. And I mean, I love the story. I think there's just something romantic that works about the idea of 2 people falling in love over their words.
Uh-huh.
You know, they're writing letters to each other. They hate each other in real life, but their inner person comes out in these letters and they fall in love. And the songs are so catchy. It's so well crafted. It's so charming. And I will see anyone who puts this show on. I will drive however far I need to drive. I love She Loves Me. And and it was really fun too, because my friend Jennifer Chandler, who lives in Austin, Texas, she was in town for a meeting only for that night. And
Oh my goodness.
so she was able to go and see She Loves Me with me. And so that,
Oh, fun.
was really fun. Another sort of memory to have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that show, it's so cute. It's a
It really
feel-good
is.
show. I knew nothing about it going into it. When I
Mhm.
went into Tech Week, I thought, what in the world is this? Because they kind of explained it to me, but during Tech Week, I'd walked in and they were doing different parts. So I hadn't seen it from the beginning. I didn't know what was happening. So
Mhm. Yeah.
they're like, it's like the movie You've Got Mail. And I went, oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I mean, and just because I love Shop Around the Corner, I love just any variation on that story. I just love. I think it's so good. So,
Yeah.
what do you have at 2? Right, we're at 2.
Yep, 2.
Yeah, 2.
I have chose the 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee.
Oh, uh-huh.
That show was different every single night because when the audience, so there were audience members that were spellers.
Yeah, that's
So
fun.
so every time they went to spell a word, lights and sound had to play a certain cue depending on whether or not the audience got it right or wrong. So it was hilarious because me and the guy who was running lights, we would make bets every single night on who would be the last audience member standing because they didn't have a certain thing. You know, they gave the audience different words. They, you know, did different things every night. So that was so much fun. But you always had to make sure you played the correct cue, whether or not they got it right or wrong. So that was big.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually saw that on Broadway when it was in
Oh, fun.
2006. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was a theater in the round. It's called Circle in the
Oh,
Square.
wow.
Is the
Okay.
theater. Yeah. And so that made it, really easy for them to pull somebody from the audience because theater
Oh,
in the
yeah.
round, and so the interaction is one of the best things about that show. It's really fun.
Yes. Yeah. It was a lot of fun to run sound for anyways.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, my number 2 is one of my favorite shows. I talk about all the time. I will see it. Whoever puts it on, I'll drive however far I need to go because I absolutely love Bright Star.
Yes.
It is just an
Goodness,
absolutely
that show
beautiful show.
makes you cry. It
I-
really does.
I just think it has everything.
Uh-huh.
It has lighter moments. It's got another round. It's got funner, more fun songs. But then it has that emotion, it has the drama. It's got the good dancing. It's got the beautiful music. I mean, I would have to extreme nitpick to find
Yes.
flaws with that show. I just absolutely love it. And such a beautiful message and a beautiful love story, two beautiful love stories.
Yeah.
And I was so like flabbergasted when I saw it at Centerpoint, because there's this incredible production. And there was this older couple that was the row ahead of me. And I could tell that they were not enjoying it. And
no.
yeah, and then at intermission, the man looks at the woman and says, "Are you enjoying this?" And she's like, "No." She's like, "Let's leave." And I was just like mouth agape, like, how could you
Like, what?
this show, especially at the end of the first act when
It's so big.
and there's like this cliffhanger, how could you leave? And it was just, my heart died.
Like, you guys have no feelings. No, there are shows that literally make me cry when I'm running sound. It's so funny because the light person always looks at me funny and I go, you know what? This show's making me feel things.
Yeah, I believe that. I could see, I could probably do sound actually pretty good, because I do have the personality where I just don't tire of things the way that other people, things I like. I don't tire. Like, I could see Bright Star every day and still love it. Like, I have that personality. I
think everyone has a show like that.
It is perfection. It's so good. So what is your number one? The number one show.
So my number one show that I ran, this is going to be a funny one. It's The Play That Goes Wrong.
Oh yeah.
I have now ran it at Centerpoint, and I'm currently running it at Pickleville Playhouse. And it is so funny.
It is.
Because it's different every night. I mean, it's supposed to be kind of the same, but the audience reactions, I think, is one of my favorite things about running sound for that show. Because that show it's a play within a play. So it's called Play That Goes Wrong, but it's a Cornley Drama Society's putting on The Murder at Haversham Manor. And things just don't go as planned.
No.
And running sound, you're purposefully making mistakes. You miss the cue, because they do have a sound technician in the show. His name is Trevor.
And he's looking for his Duran Duran.
Yes, he is looking for his Duran Duran CDs, and everything's going wrong. He really sucks at being a sound technician. So it's just funny because he's such an awful sound technician. So I have to be the awful sound technician, but still being the good one and making sure the wrong cues are done correctly.
Yeah. Well, and now I've seen it. I mean, I just said, there's shows I could see over and over again, but there is maybe for that kind of show, the more you see it, the shock factor is a little lessened. I still enjoy it. I still laugh. I've seen it 3 times, and I really think it's a hoot. But that first time I saw it was at Centerpoint. Was the first time, and particularly when the floor, everything with the floor, it's just so outlandish, and you don't think that they're going to go there, and then they do. And
it was funny running it at Centerpoint, because that would happen. And, the actor side of Camille would always kick in, and I would be shocked because the audience that's sitting up by the booth, they would look at me and go, was that supposed to happen? And I went, and so I would play that shocked, and I would say, oh my gosh, oh my goodness.
Yeah, you're like a character in it.
Yeah. So it was so funny. And then at Pickleville, we lose the dog. His name's Winston. And I'm the person who has to go find Winston. So yes, I do have a dog toy up there that I am looking for Winston, because, we have to find Winston before the show starts. So it's just, it's so much fun to run, because every audience is hilariously funny and they're different. So I really, really enjoy it.
Yeah, it's a good pick. So my top pick is maybe a surprise, but I'd pick The Music Man. The Music Man.
I was going to think that you would say that, because I remember you loving that show afterwards.
I mean, I do enjoy Music Man, and I have seen it many, many, many times. And this was one of the finest versions I've ever seen. This was legit better than Hugh Jackman on Broadway, without a question.
That is so funny that you say that, because my parents, I love my mother and father. They come to every show to listen to me run sound. And they live in St. George. They're 5 hours away from, northern Utah. And they come and support me and listen to all my shows that I run. And they were going to the Music Man, with Hugh Jackman later in the year. And afterwards, my dad comes up to me and he goes, I could see Hugh Jackman playing that role. He goes, that guy did really good. The one that played Harold Hill.
Yeah, I think his name was Max
Russell. Yeah.
Yeah, I gave him my Best Actor of the Year award
awesome.
that year of anything that I saw in Utah. And he was perfect. I mean, he nailed Trouble, which is the hardest song in the show.
The funny fact about him, his dad also played Harold Hill back in the day. And the shoes that he wore in the show at Centerpoint were the shoes that his dad wore as Harold Hill.
Russell Maxfield.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. He
Isn't
was
that kind of fun?
Outstanding. Yeah, that is. I remember, and now that you say that, I remember that. And he was absolutely outstanding. The whole rest of the cast was great.
Yeah.
I mean, it was perfect. I literally left thinking I have no critiques. I mean, it was perfect. And I've seen The Music Man twice actually on Broadway. So for me to say that I not only saw it with Hugh Jackman, but then I also saw it with Rebecca Luker and Craig Bierko in 2001 or 2000, 2000. And and that has, I mean, I have huge nostalgia for The Music Man, like so many people, but that trip in 2000, it was a Christmas trip that I went on with my grandma and my cousin. And we saw Music Man, we saw Beauty and the Beast, and then we saw the Rockettes Christmas Spectacular.
Oh, fun.
Yeah. And that was the whole reason that we got my grandma to go, because she loved the Rockettes, and she loved, tap, any kind of, like, she would have loved 42nd Street or Crazy for You.
Oh, yes.
That kind of thing was her favorite. And so that's how me and my cousin Lisa, we were able to convince her to take us on this trip, because we're like, we'll go and see the Rockettes, Grandma. And it's a very
these other shows.
Yeah. It was a very special trip, because my cousin actually ended up passing away the next April.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. She had chronic poor health, but it still was it was a surprise.
Yeah.
And I've just always been really grateful that we took
that trip
time. Yeah. It's so easy to just kind of be like, I don't want but to take the time to plan something and go and do, and when you have the chance, because now they both passed now, my grandma and Lisa, and so Beauty and the Beast and Music Man are very, very special to me. And last year there was a movie on Hallmark Channel with the Rockettes, and that was special to me as well, because it just made me think of, of course, my grandma and that trip and everything. And so for me to say it's one of the best Music Man I've ever seen, that is a lot.
That's big.
That's
big. Awesome.
It's big. I've reviewed Music Man 3 times just this summer for UTBA.
Oh, wow.
That's how I've seen Music Man so many times.
That is awesome. I'm glad that we put on a good show.
Yeah, it's such a great show. And of course, it really depends if you have a great Harold, makes all the difference. And
Harold carries that show.
Yeah.
So for sure.
Yeah. And Hugh Jackman was very good as Harold. I just felt like he was shouting the songs a little bit
rather than singing,
pushing them, a little bit.
Yeah.
But it was still super fun. And so, but that is my favorite thing I've ever seen. It's one of the finest things I've ever seen in Utah theater.
Oh, awesome.
Centerpoint's Music Man was outstanding.
Well, Good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. So there we go. That's our favorites. So if you all have seen any of these shows or if you've seen anything at Centerpoint recently, let us know what you think. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section or on Twitter. And do you have any like social media or anything like that you want to share?
I am actually not on social media a lot, so
That's all right. But you can follow Centerpoint and in Pickleville while you're working there. So people, I'll put those links if people want to check
perfect.
that
That
out.
would be amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you are listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. We really appreciate that. Spread the word that we're doing this fun Theater Tuesdays every week. And I'll have the playlist with all of the Theater Tuesday episodes that we're doing. So please check that out. And if you are listening on YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. We appreciate that so much. And also have a Patreon group, merch store, and I have all of my theater reviews both at Utah Theater Bloggers and also at Rachel's Reviews Theater.com. So check that out. And thanks so much. This was so much fun.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.
All right. Bye, everyone.